Good morning.
Good morning. This is Christmas Eve 2024, and we're so happy to have you with us on this special day. And our talk today, our title is Jesus Never Said, oops, sorry, that's my first comment. The title is The Gifts That Jesus Gave Us. And so
Seems timely.
what?
It seems timely.
Yes, I think it's
being Christmas
yes,
Eve.
it's
Yeah.
Christmas Eve. It's all about gifts. Let's think about the gifts Jesus gave us, and things that Jesus never said. We also will be
Right, yeah.
discussing. So let's begin with an opening prayer.
Sure.
So we know that today, as this special day, everything unfolds exactly as it should. We know technology is our friend, cooperates with us, and we know we're all blessed this day. We're blessed with the story, the teachings of Jesus, and we give thanks that we have this special time of the year to consider those and think about them. We give thanks for our own intellects that we are able to question and question tradition and have our own ideas about those. We give thanks, we release,
And we say it together.
and
So
together
it
we
is.
say, so it is. So, boy, my family's going to think that's heresy if they hear that prayer. But so what I wanted to say was that Jesus gave us so many gifts. He was the great example. He showed us how to act, how to be, and he was a son of God, no doubt about it. And we are so grateful for everything he did. But there's some things that he never did. He never said, "I am the only son of God." He was a great example of a son of God. And he did say, "It is not I, but the Father within who doeth the works." I don't think he said it in that kind of English, but he probably didn't say doeth. But nevertheless,
What did he say?
he said it in Aramaic.
I think so.
But at any rate, he was explaining that the power is the power of God in him. And he was also, he said to his disciples there towards the end, greater things than these shall ye do. You know, that this is something that God is within them as well. God is within all of us. So this is really a game changer when you realize that you are one with God too. Probably not to the extent that Jesus was. I certainly don't think I am. But he was a great example for us. You know, he was born in a culture. He was a Jew, and so the culture that I know of at the time had things like justice was an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And his idea was, no, forgive 70 times 7, which means forever, infinity. And so because someone asked him, how many times should we forgive? 70 times 7, or 70. And needless to say, he meant forever continue to forgive, because forgiving is for you, not for others. Forgiving cleanses your heart, releases you from holding a hostility, holding an anger about something.
Holding yourself hostage.
Yeah, holding yourself hostage. So, and when he did miracles, he said, "It is not I, but the Father within who doeth the works." So he was saying where the power came from, the Father within. And he didn't say, "And I'm the only one that's got the Father within." You know, when he died, he was just Jesus of Nazareth. He never called himself Jesus Christ. he was Jesus of Nazareth, or maybe Yeshua ben Joseph, or Yusuf. And so it wasn't until many years after his death, at least, really, it was really in 300 years after his death, when the Christians, when the Romans decided to make Christianity their religion, which they did because Constantine, his mother, was Christian, and he had a dream that saw him winning a great victory over a great army, and he was carrying a shield with a cross on it. So to him, that meant, if I convert to Christianity and convert Romans to Christianity, I'll grow an even greater.
I'll win the war, but
thinking.
you feel the love. Yeah.
And he did. But needless to say, of course, we had people, particularly Paul, promoting his work 30 years or so after he passed. But there was no Christian religion. There was nobody else really promoting it. The disciples did. Most of them were there's a word for it, made martyrs. They were made martyrs, defending his teachings. But I wanted to just distinguish that what we commonly have been taught as children, that he is the only Son of God, is nothing he ever said. He's not even ever attributed to say. He referred to his Father. My Father and I are one. But he didn't say, but not you. You can't have him. You can't have him as your father.
Something else that you said too, you were saying, I don't have that degree of capability or that degree of awareness, or I'm not that as awake as Jesus was. And at the same time, we also have to realize you didn't dedicate your entire life from childhood on to that kind of a mission. And when I look at some of the masters that I've read, I'm trying to remember one of them that from India that wrote, it's a great book on, he was a great master. Well,
I know what you mean
yeah.
when you try to think of a name
Yeah.
right at that
But
time.
anyway, but what he dedicated his entire life to this. And so when he dedicated his entire life, it opened doors in consciousness that are not generally open to people, but they are available to be opened. And the distinction that I want to make is that he performed great miracles. When he died, he laid in state, I think, for something like 3 days without any deterioration of his body. And I mean, there were just so many things about him.
This Indian saint.
Yeah, and there have been so many masters, and masters having mastered things that many of us only pay attention to a little at a time. When we have time, we do an evening prayer, we do a morning meditation, and then we go about our daily living, where most of the important decisions and most of the quote important action is taken. And so if you imagine being a person whose important action is always a spiritual action, then you really become proficient, if you will, at connecting in ways that for most of us it's difficult to connect.
Yogananda,
Yogananda.
he laid in state
That's what I was thinking of.
a
Yeah.
long time, and
I
his
think it was like
body
3
did
days or
not
something like that. Yeah.
decompose. No, it was longer than that. I'm sure we have an audience member who could tell us.
Yes.
But it was a long time, and his body did not deteriorate, and he smelled like roses. So some interesting stories from people, as you say, who dedicate their lives.
Right.
We do believe there are many ascended masters.
Well, but part of why I bring that up that is so important is that because there's always a question, did Jesus actually live? Did he really do these things? Is it even possible? Well, what we actually have, even though we don't have an accurate recording of his life, we have had lives since then that have paralleled that in so many ways. And of course, because of the emphasis on being a Christian that has dominated our culture, those individuals are usually not looked at or not recognized or not seen. But they're actually, from my point of view, they create the evidence that a Jesus did exist and that a Jesus could do those things because those things have been done again and again. But as important as that is, and Judith was saying, is that Jesus was the great example, and all of the masters who have ascended have also identified themselves as vessels for good and indicated that others, if they were to follow enough, would also be able to do what they were doing. They became disciples of a consciousness. And so what I want to say at Christmas is, particularly, there are 1,000 doors that are in consciousness. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. And you have access to all of them. And you may not be able to enter any of those if, in fact, you're not willing to take the time to open the door, to do the work that it takes to get to that destination. And that's okay. Nobody's making you do it. And we're all specialists in the areas of that our lives unfold before us and give us an opportunity to explore. But it doesn't mean because we haven't seen it or haven't done it that it can't exist, or that this is just a myth or a story.
One of the things he said gave hope for eternal life. And it's my understanding that his tradition, the Jewish tradition at that time, did not believe in eternal life afterwards. They did believe in a judgment day down the future where it would be decided that for you, but there was no place now. And he said to his disciples again, where I go, you may go also. I will go and prepare a place for you, that my Father's house has many mansions. And so there were many places, many levels. But he's saying, where I go, you will go also, which is nice. That was a wonderful shift in thinking. And mind you, he was not trying to start a new religion. He was just sharing truth as he knew it. And it was, it was not well taken by many in his group at the time. We don't know for sure that the Good Samaritan story actually happened. There's question marks about did these stories get inserted in the Bible. But the story of the Good Samaritan is one that Americans love because we are such a mishmash of different cultures, and we believe in equality and helping newbies who come to the country. And the tradition in his time is that the Samaritans were not considered to be of the same group as he was in. And so they were not to speak to them. They were not to eat with them. And they had another tradition that you never touch a person on the road who's bleeding, who's lying and bleeding. You don't touch that because of the blood. And so the story of the Good Samaritan, which is, that you're walking down the road and you see this person who happens to be a Samaritan who's bleeding. And, Jesus stopped and helped that person, disregarding all those rules about who's in and who's out of our group. It's a great example of loving all people, regardless of their race or situation. Certainly, if we would, if not stop and help himself, at least call 911 and get someone to help such a person. So it was a wonderful teaching story, and again, differed from the traditions that he grew up with. So he was saying, you don't have to, if this in fact actually happened, this rule doesn't make sense. There's a better way, a higher way.
What's amazing to me is we live in a time right now where, although many of the people who are saying, be careful, don't let those people in, don't touch them, don't have this, call themselves Christians, who are not willing or not able to consider people different from themselves, or people who are migrating in this generation rather than the last generation. And I think we're up against, as Christians, those of us who call ourselves Christians are up against the same divide that Jesus was up against, except the difference now is that the Christians are divided themselves. And I think that division has really given Christianity a black eye, because what's happened now, what I see politically, is that we have more and more people that are saying that they're Christians, and it gives them permission to disown huge parts of our country and our people, and to disrespect them, and in fact even feel comfortable hurting them or making sure that they're not included in anything that humanity would offer. And so I think if we're going to call ourselves Christians, or we're going to lead a life like Jesus led, we're going to have to include love, consideration, compassion, acceptance, and we're going to have to be willing to do more than we've done so far to make sure that all of us are treated equally. And I think that's what the Christmas spirit is really about. And what I see during the Christmas season are people reaching out to those who are desperate and hungry and don't have, because it's Christmas. And I would say it's because it's Christ-like.
Mm.
And if we were to be Christ-like all year, we would have Christmas as a holy day to celebrate our year's activity, rather than to have an entire year's activity in a single day. And I think, and I'm not poking at anyone in particular, but what I continually see, the divide in Christianity that causes people to become more and more embittered and more hateful and more angry, when the very nature of Jesus was to love and to consider and to accept. So I think it's a time for us to think about Jesus' birth, and to allow ourselves to give birth to the consciousness in ourselves that would serve, and that would serve more than ourselves, but that would serve humanity in a more generous way.
Exactly. We, in our teaching, we talk about developing the Christ consciousness. In other words, his thinking, his believing. If we, as the great example, when he said, "The Father and I are one," that would be a perfect prayer for us every morning.
Mhm.
The Father and I are one. The source and I are one. And so the power he had to heal, we have. We have, when we acknowledge we are one with the source, that all things are possible with that belief, to recognize their wholeness, their wellness, to state that as it is the truth. And that is the way we pray. That is the way we, but what we are doing, what I'd like to say is our teaching was born out of, we believe this is what Jesus was teaching us to do. He didn't want to be the great exception. And that's what we did. We made him, oh, only a God could do this. Let's make him the only Son of God.
Well,
He never said
there's
that.
another benefit in that too. We're off the
It's
hook.
off the hook that
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
yes. Oh, he
Oh,
could,
yeah,
he
Jesus could
could
do that,
forgive
but
70
yeah,
times 70, but
that's
not me.
that's
I
right.
can hold a grudge forever.
That's right. And I have a good reason to hold a grudge, of course. And we need to become more unreasonable. We have reasoned ourselves into hate and all kinds of behaviors that are not good for us or anyone else. And I don't know where it was said that do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If we just did that, we could not do an awful lot of what we're doing to other people. And I know this is a tricky topic on Christmas Eve, but what better time to talk about our humanity and our willingness to love and show kindness and express that love than a time when it's being celebrated. And we have to look at the tricky things that are going on in our own consciousness without realizing it. We were watching TV yesterday, and a woman who's working at a food bank, generously putting in her time to help people who don't have enough food to have food. How much nicer can you be than that? And she said on air, well, I love doing this because, there are a lot of people who are, what were the exact words that she said?
We just can't manage
They
to
can't-
get it
They
together to
can't get
get
it
food on the
together,
table.
get it together to get. And I thought, oh my God, I can't believe you're saying that on television.
What a judgmental thing to
Can't
say.
get it together. Yeah. Dad died or is in prison. The kids are hungry. You don't have a job, but they can't get it together. And I thought we have so many ways without meaning to, that we unconsciously often demean those who are less fortunate than we are, or who have not achieved what we've achieved, and we don't even know we're doing it. There's a lot of room for what Jesus taught in our consciousness long before we even go out of the door of our own home. And how is it that anybody could actually think that a poor person, no matter the condition, just can't get it together?
I saw a true documentary on TV. A young man decided to check out what it would be like to have low income and no transportation and having to rent. And he found so many dilemmas with that his job had low income. If he got sick, he had no transportation to get to a doctor. He would take buses from bus to bus to bus to get to work. And he found himself getting behinder and behinder in money, in ability, and lost his job because he couldn't make it because he was sick.
He couldn't get it together.
He could not get it together. He couldn't make it work. Imagine that. He could not make it work with poverty. And so we need to walk a mile in someone's shoes before we judge them like that, like he did. It was really quite eye-opening how you just get behind her and behind her.
Well, if we could simply shift to neutral, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the condition is that causes person to be suffering, but if I can help them not suffer, then I have done something that would be valuable, as opposed to assessing their suffering from our point of view and determining that they must like it or that they must be okay with it or that it's their own fault. A lot of us are living in conditions that are generational, meaning we didn't create the condition, the generations before us created the conditions that we're living in that have us often thinking and acting and being the way we are. And it's really tragic when we can't take a step back and see the humanity in every human being.
And didn't he tell us, judge not, lest you be judged? And I don't think he was talking about lest God judge you.
Right.
But that's the way it's interpreted. I think it just means if you judge others, they're going to judge you too. So it's just not helpful.
Well,
And we have so much trouble not doing it.
yeah. And the things that I'm saying, I mean, I realize too that I'm speaking to, this the minister talking to the choir. I realize we're talking to people who are listening who already probably know this, but I tell you, I need to be reminded because I can be as narrow and small-minded as anyone I've met and justify that based on past experience or based on how much something might have hurt. And because of the hurt, I'm going to ensure that I don't hurt anymore, which means it's okay to hurt someone else or to treat them less like a person, which hurts them. And so I think for myself, I have to do the work that I'm asking us all to pay attention to.
I do too.
Yeah,
I do
and
too.
so we're all in the boat. And the woman who was on television saying, they can't get it together. I am sure she had no ill feelings or thoughts when she said that. In fact, I think very little thoughts. But it speaks to the unconsciousness that we have about how things are different from us and what it means. And so if we could be more curious, less judgmental, we could be more open to just being in neutral, not even feeling positive, but saying, I'm going to put all my judgments on reservation here. I'm going to and just see what happens.
There was a movement within Christianity, probably
What would Jesus
10,
do?
20 years ago. Yes. And they wore little rubber bracelets that said WWJD. And that meant, what would Jesus do? And it was a reminder. I think it started to remind the kids, but I thought it was great for everybody to do. When you find yourself angry, judgmental, want retribution, want somebody to apologize, what would Jesus do? He
Jesus
was
would
the great
he would
example.
stand in line as long as he needed to and be patient until he was able to purchase the gun that he needed. And he would be, willing to have a gun permit, whatever that took, because of course, isn't it interesting though, how different times are now than they were? Of course, they didn't have guns then, but I suspect that Jesus would not have lobbied for gun permits, He would have lobbied for people to ask themselves what it is that is inside of them that would have them feel justified in carrying and shooting and hurting people because they feel justified in doing that. So there's a lot to think about.
I want to close with another statement that is in the Bible that says that Jesus says, "It is the Father's good pleasure to give to you the kingdom and all things added unto it." Now, the kingdom, I believe, means the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom, that consciousness of oneness and love.
The kingdom of consciousness.
Yeah, the kingdom of consciousness. Yeah, and all things added unto it. So it is easy for us to connect with it if we believe we can. And I believe that is the great gift, the greatest gift that Jesus gave us, which is for us to know for us too, it is the Father within that doeth works. And this Father meaning source. I don't believe in God a Father, but I think that was the way people understood it in his day. I believe it is God the Creator, God the creative energy of which we are all the creation of.
Well, I want to say too, in closing, that you've quoted a lot of things that Jesus is reported to have said and reported to have done. And I guess what we have to know for sure is that we don't know any of this to have occurred the way we've said we think it might have occurred. But I'm wondering why, when people cherry pick the most negative, that seems to be more valuable than cherry picking the most positive.
That's true.
And I think that Jesus taught, one thing he seems to have taught more than anything else was to love.
Yes.
And if we could simply have ourselves
Just
ask that
love each
question,
other. Yeah.
how am I loving me? How am I loving you? How am I loving others? And if we could ask that question today, tomorrow, and every day, whether Jesus said it was written in order because he thought he might have said it or not, it doesn't make any difference. The overall flow of this, the energy of this is love. And that is what he taught. And you don't have to subscribe to anything or anybody's philosophy to practice love.
That's true. And I keep thinking of the story of when you started the church in Oroville with the woman who called you and said,
We're praying against you.
Just wanted you to know we're praying hard against you.
Yeah. And I said, do you believe in Jesus? She said, yes, of course we do. I said, if you'll tell me who Jesus hates, I'll hate them too. And she hung up.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So, um,
Well, I think we're going to end with this, but let's just take a minute and also share with you that for those of you that would like to support our work, our ministry, please feel free to do that by contacting us and going to our website, which is Center for Spiritual Living.
no,
Sorry,
CSL
Palm Beaches dot org. Okay, I'll get it eventually. We've only been doing this 10 years. But if you'll go to that site and you scroll down, you'll see where you can make a donation. And there's
Scroll up.
Scroll up. I like that as opposed to down. Yes, scroll up in a heavenly kind of way to where you can make a donation, and you feel free to donate as much or as little as you feel comfortable with. And I would also add to that, if there's something going on in your world that just lifts you up every day and really gives you the support that you need, support that. And support what gives your spiritual nature the lift and the boost and the support and the encouragement that it needs. We'd like to be that source as well, and we do our best to be that source. There are many sources for that, and that's the best news we could possibly share with you.
I just wanted to mention that we said, if Jesus said that or whatnot. I have a Bible that scholars got together and selected the parts of all the things that Jesus said in the Bible that they believe he really said, and there's a whole bunch that they believe he didn't say because it has historically other sources. So that's what I'm referring to when we say if he said it, because we know there are many scholars who don't believe everything that's attributed to him he actually said. So, and the truth is nobody knows, but we do know that he taught love.
You know, I watch things that have been recorded on TV, and people will say it didn't happen. So it's pretty hard when you actually have physical evidence and people don't believe it. It's pretty tough to go back 2,000 years and say, well, we have a recording of that. We don't have a lot, but so we're going to close here. Let's close with an ending prayer, and then for those of you that are joining us by video today, we'll hang out afterwards and we can talk. So what I know right here and right now is that which was in Jesus is in us. The light that was in him is in us. That light illumines our consciousness and gives us an opportunity to see the many doors of the many mansions that we can enter. There is no place that God has been that we cannot go or that we are kept from. And so the invitation right here and right now is for us to expand in every way that we choose to expand, and to enjoy the experience and the experiment that we are willing to enter into to find greater love, greater consciousness, and greater light. I know this is true, and I say, and we say together, and so it is. And we're going to end here.